All right. Hello, everyone. People are ready to go and jumping into the virtual doors. Welcome to class. My name is Alberto Carbo with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, and we're here for another Herbs A to Z. Tonight is three sisters, pulsatilla, black cohosh, peony root, and their cousins. I'm here with Matthew Wood and Phyllis Delight, of course. And for all of you catching us live on Facebook, please know that there will be a link in the description at the bottom where you can click and go to the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism.com. And I will bring you there briefly to show you, of course, for all of the Herbs A to Z subscribers, you will find this class in my dashboard within 2 days. But this is a precursor or a lead-in to one of the really interesting series that we have coming up, the Herbs and the Female Reproductive System. This is with Matthew and Phyllis as well. And for those of you that are not aware, they have over 75 years of clinical experience combined, which is amazing. There's not much you can say about that. It's wonderful. And it really shows in these classes because they have so much clinical experience, anecdotes, and case studies to bring to the table. And of course, their holistic assessment skills are unparalleled. So I highly recommend it. And you'll get a preview of that in tonight's class. But for the Female Reproductive System series, you still have 5 days to save, and you can purchase a single class. There are 6 classes in the series, and they're broken up kind of by life stages. So you have an overview class, and then you have menstruation, yeast infection, vaginitis, and HPV, uterine tone and bladder, pregnancy and delivery, and then perimenopause and menopause. So almost like broken up by life stages. So you can get one each or just one each if you are interested in just one topic. But if you want to learn all about the female reproductive system in its entirety, then you want to go for the bundle. And when you buy 4, you get 2 for free. And you can click there to purchase. I will also mention back on the home page, if you scroll a little bit further down, you will see the free Materia Medica cards. And you can find out all about these cards simply by downloading the set. They are high quality and printable as well. And you get a bit of a preview here, but they have wonderful pictures, and they also have so much information so concisely and well presented on the other side, like energetics and taste, tissue states, organ affinities, as well as herbal actions and uses. So you in one small card, you get a lot of information, and these are great to test yourself, test your friends and your family, maybe play some games where you test your memory and make learning just so much fun. Of course, I will also mention that we've opened up registration for the MWH Year 1 program. And until February 11th, you can save $1,000 on tuition. This is a comprehensive year-long program, so I highly encourage you to click on Learn More and take your time to read through the program page, the description, everything that's included, as well as a question section at the bottom. And if you have any questions about any of that, you can let us know at hello@whatherbs.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. With that, I will come back to the webinar. And for those of you who have just joined, my name is Alberto Carbo with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. I'm here with Phyllis Delight and Matthew Wood. And tonight's Herbs A to Z is 3 sisters, pulsatilla, black cohosh, peony root, and their cousins. And if you're new to a webinar, or if you need a refresher, there are 2 ways, as always, to participate. You have the Q&A and the chat. Both of the functions you'll find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you go ahead and open the chat window, you'll see a tab that says to host and panelists. Click on it and switch it to everyone to make sure that everyone receives your messages. And I see that people are tuning in from all different parts: Michigan, Aurelia, Ontario, Australia, amazing, Alabama, Oh, that's Phyllis.
That's me.
We got Atlanta. Um, I think Matthew's in California right now. We got Ohio, New Hampshire, Switzerland. Amazing. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, we got someone else from Ontario. I'm in Ontario as well. More California, and yeah, Philadelphia, New Jersey. So lots of different places, and especially overseas. That's wonderful to see. So thank you for, oh, Hawaii is in the house as well, and Missouri. So that's great. Thank you for making it out here and tuning in for this wonderful class. But the chat is where you can let us know fun things like where you're tuning in from, but also any personal anecdotes that you want to share throughout class, any experiences with the plants that you want to share. For specific content related questions, place those in the Q&A, and that's so that they don't get lost in the chat. Excuse me. And without further delay, I will hand it off to Matthew and Phyllis for Herbs A to Z, Three Sisters, Pulsatilla, Black Cohosh, Peony Root, and their cousins.
Well, let me describe the logic behind this Three Sisters. So they're all buttercups, black cohosh, pulsatilla, and peony root. They're not only buttercup family, but they are female remedies, and they're really important, like just worldwide famous female remedies from different cultures, though. So black cohosh, Native American, they don't really have a cohosh in Europe. There is actually an Actea or a Simisfuga that never came into use, so I don't know if that one would have similar properties, but most of the cousins of black cohosh are rougher to use. They're more spastic and stuff. Pulsatilla, which comes to us really from homeopathy. Nobody really used it in European herbalism, and it's not one I know from Native American herbalism either, although the Native American and the Native European pulsatillas are considered interchangeable by the homeopaths. So there's one that comes to us from homeopathy and from Europe, North America, Europe, and then peony root is really a very important remedy in Chinese herbalism down to the present. It was extremely important, probably the dominant female remedy in Greek medicine, but it kind of died out a couple hundred years ago. Like that happens with herbs go through fads. I have no idea why it died out in Western herbalism. It's probably still mentioned by Grieve in 1931, but nobody in the current generation gets their information from the Greek Western tradition. And it's so we will be getting onto that one, although it has and there is a Native American uh, um, peony Peonia brown eye on the West Coast, which can be used interchangeably. So it's a really universal plant. So there are three cousins, three sisters. They're all of great use, great use in female reproductive. And then they have some cousins which are not really female reproductive per se, although some of the best herpes remedies fit in that category, which is male and female both, and not and also non-sexual a little bit too. It's cold sores, various things like that. Shingles, even chicken pox. Okay, so we'll get to them too, but first we're going to do the Three Sisters, and I thought I'd turn it over to Phyllis first because I've had a long day, out of town guests and two consults and just stuff all day long, and so uh, Phyllis, start
All
with
right.
whatever herb you want and
I'm
go from
going to start with black cohosh
there.
because that is the herb that is native to my area and the herb that I
Yep.
know the best. I'm on the southern end. I'm in Alabama, North Alabama, at the edge of the Appalachians, and I'm on the southern end of black cohosh territory. It really gets a little too hot further south from me, but where I'm at, we do see it in the woods, not in vast amounts, but definitely harvestable amount. That was hard to say. Um, and then it grows all the way up to the Great Lakes, all the way up into the Northeast. It doesn't mind a little cold weather. It is a shrub. Well, it's
No,
not a tree. It's what would you
no,
call it?
it's a perennial herb. It
It's a
dies.
perennial herb, but it gets tall. It gets like maybe
Yes.
10 feet tall. It doesn't,
Really?
it's,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. It only
Wow.
gets about 3 feet tall where I am, or four.
What?
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay.
We're at the northern end. It grows up to about the Wisconsin River, which is like La Crosse. It could be grown in the Twin Cities. It'll occasionally self-seed, but it's certainly successful as a plant, but it doesn't reproduce except a year's when it just happens to be right. So it's beyond the range slightly, but I wouldn't call it a shrub. I think it's a perennial that dies back to the rhizomes, roots. But where you are, does it
Oh,
remain? It
it
remains
doesn't
all
die back here.
God. Wow, how different.
Okay. It is very different. I'm glad we're having this conversation. So
Uh,
it doesn't die back here. It loses its leaves, but that the stem, and it's a woody stem, that shrubby woody
oh,
stem, and it'll be like, I haven't really seen it more than 10 feet tall.
wow.
Um, more commonly, it's like 6, 7 feet tall. It's taller than me. Definitely, it gets taller than me. I have seen it up in Wisconsin where it was like maybe 3.5, 4 feet tall. Um, and I recognized it by its flower, where here it does get a bit taller, and maybe it's just the longer growing season.
Hmm.
Maybe it's 9, 10 months growing season that it has here, as opposed to maybe a 6, 7 month growing season up there. I don't know exactly what the growing season is before it gets cold. Um, and it tends to grow in patches here. So if there's one, if you look around, you're more than likely to find several in the vicinity. And as a companion, interestingly, almost always there's a blue cohosh growing near, and blue cohosh is not related to black cohosh at all. Totally different families, totally different uses. Um, so yeah, that's really interesting. So it likes to be and have moist soil, but it doesn't like to have swampy soil. So tend to find it on kind of the sides of hills leading, excuse me, leading down to a bit of water,
Oh,
are the little flat ledges, narrow ledges that we get on the mountains here that are, it's like, it's like a slope. And then you've got like maybe 3 to 5 feet of a tiny ledge that is covered in plants, then more rocky slope. We have a lot of limestone, and we have a lot of um, sandstone, and we have some granite. So our woods often have big rocks and big boulders just sticking up willy-nilly here and there. And wherever they're sticking up, somehow there's little ledges forms here and there. So it likes to grow there. It prefers being down low, altitude wise, versus up high. So we tend to find more on the lower slopes, and down close to the bottom rather than up on top. And up on top here is like maybe 1,500 feet above sea level. So it's not a giant mountain, but definitely if you're trying to climb it, it feels like a giant mountain. It's a pretty good slope. The roots are a mass of black tangled roots, which is where it got its name, because cohosh is Native American for rough. And that's also where it got its name for black, because the roots are really super dark brown into black, all tangled up. Traditionally, it was called also black snake root, was another common name. Um, was it used for snake bite?
yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But the roots also look like a tangled mass of snakes all balled
Yep.
up. Yeah.
Think Raiders of the Lost Ark, Volume 1.
Yes. Yes. All the snakes all like, yeah. All curled up. And if you've ever
Oh,
seen like a snakes hibernating in the ground. So a couple of times in my life, somebody would be plowing the garden or plowing the field, and they would be like, "Oh, I just see a snake nest," because they'll hibernate in little tunnels. They'll take over other animals' tunnels,
Oh,
places like they love to live in chipmunk holes. And they'll like so like you can have like a rattlesnake and a garter snake, and I mean and a chicken snake or a rat snake, and they are hibernating in the winter, and they just all kind of like roll up together. It's kind of gross. uh, it is kind of gross. And so I've seen that a few times in my life where one of these balls got plowed up in the early spring and before they started coming out. And it really does kind of remind you how black cohosh root kind of tangles around itself. And I've always thought that must be kind of a signature for something. The root ball, the way it tangles, could it help untangle things? Maybe if we looked at it from a doctrine of signature, you had something all tangled, would this be black cohosh be something good to help you untangle the threads?
yeah, that's how I started using it for cerebral spinal fluid, whiplash, spinal, stuff like that, because that wasn't really in the books. I found one case on history that was a little bit related to that, but I'm the one who started using it for whiplash and the spinal thing. Also, the above ground part looks like a spine whipping in the wind like that, and like a
Hmm.
snake.
Well, okay, all right. So it has the long plume of the flower, like
Yeah,
at the top,
yeah.
um, which actually kind of looks like the flower plume of a false unicorn horn.
Oh,
But false unicorn is in the orchid family and is low growing to the ground because it's an orchid. It grows here also, but it has that long white plume also.
mm,
That kind of is almost the same curvature. If you see them wild in the woods, they're not the same plant, but they have similar plumes at the top, white plumes.
yeah. Also, those tangled up roots are like the mental state,
Yeah, like chaos, like
all tangled up and dark and brooding.
yeah, yeah, totally. Like, sure. So one of the things that I've used black cohosh for over the years is to help people shed their skin. So, that was like one of the mental, emotional uses for it. And this could be for any reason, but it was most apparent during menopause. So this became it is a menopause remedy. It's a female remedy, but during menopause, when the body is so changing, and I'm sure, talk about it when we do the female reproductive system, and greater death. But black cohosh, on that mental emotional level, helps untangle things and help people kind of like shed that so they can start something new in their life,
Mm,
move forward into something new, just
mm.
like the snake does. It's like the snake sheds its skin.
Yeah,
All right. So black cohosh really has kind of a unique rhizome signature, which is it's really rhizomes, I think they're called, instead of roots. So
yeah.
you're right. So that is a unique signature um, for the nervous system. And if you do too much black cohosh, you will feel it in your nerves. So, case study. I was at a conference once doing a class on the female reproductive system. It was the Northeast Women's Herbal Conference. And after class, a woman came up and said, could I get a consult with you? And I said, yeah, sure. You want to do it right now? I've got a few minutes. And she said, okay. So we went off and she started telling me, she said that she had something wrong in her nervous system where she felt like ants were crawling all over her body. Just her nerves, she just felt like ants. She couldn't sleep. It's been going on for months. She'd had an MRI. She'd gone to a neurologist. She'd gone to her family doctor. She'd gone to a naturopathic physician. And she was just in horrible pain from this and agitation all the time because her nerves felt inflamed, but it felt like ants biting her or ants crawling on her. So I asked her, I said, could you tell me the herbs? What are you taking? What are you taking? And she wasn't taking anything except what had been prescribed by her naturopathic physician for menopause. She was taking some vitamins, but the only herb she was taking was she'd been taking a Nervine formula to help relax her nervous system and black cohosh for her menopausal hot flashes. So I asked her, I said, how much black cohosh are you taking?
Uh-huh.
And she said, well, I started out on 2 capsules a day and it didn't help my hot flashes. So the naturopathic, my ND upped it to 8 capsules a day. And I'm like, this is your problem. Too much black cohosh irritates the nervous system.
Yeah.
A little bit helps. A lot is irritating. And so I said, if you will just stop your black cohosh, within 2 weeks, I bet all this will be gone. And I would like you to contact me and let me know in 2 weeks, because she agreed to do this. And she said, okay. 2 weeks later, she called me. She said, it's gone. The pain is gone. The irritation is gone. I could sleep. She said, oddly, my hot flashes are less than they were when I was on the black cohosh. And so we had a discussion about that. And I'll save that discussion for the female reproductive class when we do menopause. And I'll talk more about black cohosh and menopause then. But black, go ahead.
It is really over vaunted for menopause. It like back there 20,
Yeah.
30 years ago, oh, it has phytoestrogens in it. Oh, it must be good for menopause. It's like, yeah, there's a lot more known about menopause, and
Yes.
estrogen was not the main problem.
No.
And it is a remedy sometimes for menopause, which we'll get into at that class, but it's not a major one, and it's not for hot flashes.
And it was never traditionally given by itself.
No. Oh, well.
No, not for hot flashes.
Okay. Yeah.
Or at least in the South. I can only speak for my tradition.
Yeah.
It was given with other herbs.
Yeah.
Too. So black cohosh does have an definite effect on the female reproductive system. And it can, of course, ease some symptoms of menopause that we'll talk about in the menopause class, but it is really super useful for for supporting an active labor. And again, with other herbs. And I've recommended it many times along with a blue cohosh. And it's really interesting that they do grow very close together. They're about the same size. They're both kind of stocky, shrubby something or the other here. Of course, the leaves are totally different. But it's also interesting that the only part of the plants, both plants that are not poisonous, are the roots. Yeah. Yeah. So kind of similar. So it really does help kind of ease menstrual pains. It brings blood into the reproductive area. It's useful for uterine prolapse. I find it very useful for uterine prolapse and for anxiety. So it has definite nervine properties, and I've probably over the years used it more in nervine formulas than I have particularly targeted female reproductive formulas. So, and again, it's not used by itself. It's used with other herbs because black cohosh is a strong herb. Just evidenced by kind of the effect on the woman's nervous system. And I've seen that more than once. As soon as she said,
Yeah.
black cohosh, ants crawling on my nerves, I'm like, oh my God, boy, you've OD'd on this. Fortunately, as an herb, the effect was not lasting. Right. And as soon as she stopped it, levels came down and she was fine. Not like a drug, not like prescription medications at that point, but it does help with anxiety. So it often goes for males and females, and formulas, Nervine formulas for anxiety, really super useful. And I know we think about black cohosh as just a women's herb, but it is quite useful for men as a nervine formula. And in the small amounts, kind of the last herb in the formula. All right. So it can help. Let me see how to say this. It can help reduce high blood pressure that has been caused by anxiety and stress. So where the top number is high, like systolic is up, and a person is really stressed. But again, in a formula, I'll add a little bit of black cohosh to kind of help support the nervous system and help reduce the effects of the anxiety. It definitely has an effect on the blood. We talk about some herbs like cayenne definitely has an effect on the blood. Whatever the formula is with cayenne is going to take it to the blood. Black cohosh has a definite effect on the blood. It can drive other herbs to the blood. It can help bring down, like I say, hypertension, but it drives blood to the pelvic area too. It increases blood flow to the pelvic area. Now, some of that increase blood flow is due to relaxation, to its antispasmodic properties, and the relaxation of the tenseness and constriction of the tissues in the pelvic area. And then the blood is moving, but some of it is driving things to the blood. It's super antispasmodic. Traditionally, it'll show up in cough formulas here. It has also an affinity for the bronchial tubes.
Yeah.
It'll help relax the chest, open up the bronchial tubes, and help make a productive cough. So it shows up in the older traditional Southern formulas for respiratory. Just because it has such wonderful antispasmodic activity. But so same way red clover might show up too. And black cohosh and red clover actually go really well together in a cough formula. They really do relax and open everything up. So, all right. So traditionally also used as a cardiac tonic. I said it really had an effect with the blood and the muscles, and it was considered here a cardiac tonic, and might show up in a formula with a little bit of American ginseng also, and and a few other herbs. Again, it was a part of a formula, unless you were doing a super low dose. 1 or 2 drops. You could do it as a single, but generally showed up in formulas. All right. So that's kind of like the gist of black cohosh. You want to add anything to that?
Oh yeah, let's see. So you're going to get like a stereo vision here. You'll just see interweaving how similar our accounts are, but also different. And yeah, this is thoroughly well used in Western herbalism, probably even in England. I don't know about and those of you in Australia, New Zealand probably know it too. I'm sure it's in just about every Anglophonic tradition in the world, but it does come from Native America. I thought that cohosh had something to do with female or gynecological due to its being that's where there's another herb called cohosh, which may also, but it died out. It's not really in use nowadays for a couple hundred years. That's what I thought, but I don't actually know. But at any rate, so it shows up with they show up with those names by the early 1800s, and they both are uterine relaxants and blue and black. And but so I learned, so although it's in Western herbalism, I always had a hard time learning from Western herbal sources. So I learned from homeopathy. The first herbs I studied were the ones that were used in homeopathy and herbalism because I could understand the specific symptom picture and sometimes the constitutional picture when they gave it better. So then whatever like very poor symptoms were kind of passed on by Dr. Christopher. He didn't give anything specific. And I didn't know about the eclectics who gave really specific eclectics and physiomedicalists who were centered in Cincinnati, which put them right on the border. They're kind of like north and south both. And the Ohio Valley has southern folk the traditions and herbs in there too. But this herb was used, all the way up into New England and so on as well. So what I learned from homeopathy, first, the mental state, dark, brooding state of mind, all tangled up inside, yeah, stuck, psychically stuck. Uh, People who have been, it's very scorpionic. Uh, People who've been through abusive relationships, abusive sexual or financial. It's really scorpionic that way. And so they get all tangled up and there's some brooding anger underneath about finances that they've been ripped off or in a relationship or something like that. And yes, it does help you spring out of that and be reborn. I hadn't thought of that, but the very first case I had that was like that, yeah, she just totally changed her job after 15 years, like just changed her life completely, just completely, and was so much happier. And so that dark brooding state of mind, particularly PMS, it's got a dark state of mind before the period, and they tend to be more, it's a remedy for women, especially maybe men too, that are more introspective, naturally kind of deeper. Like, and also they do have harder times with relationships if they're not working out because they really bond deep, not just some superficial thing. They're not looking for some superficial relationship. Their soul's all intertwined and then it's all tangled if they have to break up with the person. And so uh PMS, dark state of mind, versus we'll see with pulsatilla. It's happy, sad, happy, sad. There are very few cases where brooding dark and they need pulsatilla, or happy, sad, and they need, oh, I don't know if I've ever seen that with black cohosh, but pulsatilla will occasionally cover for black cohosh. But so at any rate, then they are better from the onset of the period. Another homeopathic symptom.